Welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where we gather people from all around the country, force them to sit in a room and listen to our stories. Don't worry, it's only going to be about 3 more hours. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
I'm Seth.
I'm Robbie Dube.
And we're here to tell you a story. We have a new co-host, Robbie Dube, everyone. Thank you so much, Robbie, for joining us. Robbie and I met a couple of months ago now, and he is an author. So for our first time, we have a published author on our storytelling podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. He's going to take part in this episode as we give a one-episode story, and then we are going to the next episode next week. I'll be interviewing him, talking about his new book that just came out, talking about the writing process, the publishing process, and all of that. So really excited to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited to be on and enjoy the podcast.
Great. So let's just go around the table, the metaphorical table, and say what our story elements are. I had magic system. What did you have, Reed?
Hero.
Great.
I had wise old man.
I had hero's sidekick.
Perfect. So I have magic system, which is a little bit of a world building. Do you guys want to hear mine first, or do you guys have any world building things burning a hole in your pocket?
I am a sucker for world building. I would love to hear yours first.
Okay, great. So this magic system will fit into any type of world that we have, which is really great. It is a contract-based magic system. This is a system where a person can basically make a contract with anything. So you could make a contract with water and then be able to have some control over it. You can make a contract with heat to come and go. You can make a contract with heat to only increase. You can make a contract with heat to only decrease. That's the trouble with making contracts, and with when I say a contract, I don't mean like a written contract. I mean like a person has to be recognized by the thing that they are trying to make a contract with. So the easiest contracts that can be made are with animals, right? Because animals have a very low will, so they can learn to trust you and recognize you very easily. So most everyone learns to, at a very young age, make contracts with, birds and rats and bugs, So most houses are clear of bugs and rats and birds because most housewives or builders make contracts with animals to stay away, right? It's an exchange of will after the recognition of the person, right? Some people have learned how to make contracts with other things, like trees. And this requires being recognized by the tree. So how would you be recognized by a tree? So you could lay against it for a number of years or amount of time until it begins to grow around you a little bit. And then the more it recognizes you, the more contract you can make with it, right? You might take plants and grow them up, right? And if you're their sole source of nutrients, then they would recognize you, and you could basically gain some form of mastery over them. You could cause the plants to grow faster. You could cause their output to be more. What's really hard is making a contract with the earth, rocks, because how would they recognize you? People have done it, and these people are legends. It's also difficult to make a contract with something like the ocean as like a theoretical idea, the ocean. She's a hard mistress, the ocean. But if somehow there's a pirate lord who was recognized by the ocean, and now he sails unobstructed through the ocean, these people who make contracts with crazy things are considered legends, because how would you do that? The most terrifying and most powerful form of contracts is when two people make a contract with each other. Because while it's easy to recognize the personhood of someone else, to basically see the outline of their will, it's very difficult as you go to exchange that will, who is going to rule, who is going to submit, how is this going to be worked out? So contracts between humans are typically relegated to things like marriages, kings, things like that. but they're typically kind of shied away from because they're almost seen as taboo. Because slavery is not really a thing because the value of someone's will is considered so valuable. Like someone's will is considered so valuable. So that's the magic system. Most people express it in like really kind of mundane ways, with bees and butterflies and little things that can very easily be kind of caught up in their will. But there are certain people who have made a study of being able to make these contracts, so like a dowser, right? He has found some way to make a contract with both water and rock to find water inside of rock, but it's a really closely kept secret because if everyone knew how to do it, then you would need to pay a dowser.
So how, how would you communicate? How would at what level and what medium is the exchange of information between me and the coyote that lives on the edge of my property?
Well, I mean, it can see you.
Yeah.
So it recognizes that you are a person, right? So there is some kind of handshake that takes place, right? Not a physical handshake, obviously, but some kind of maybe like a mental handshake that takes place. It's like if you want to keep them away, you can always just like throw sticks at them, and shoot them with bows and arrows or shoot them with a gun or whatever. But like if you want to like make a contract with them, you're actually kind of putting them on, putting your will over them, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you do that, then you'll have to do it to that one and then to that other coyote. And if you're just trying to keep them away, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Most builders make contracts not with the rats to keep the rats away, but with the wood to keep the rats away. Because if you make the contract with the wood will keep all rats away. Where if you do it with the rats, you have to do it with every new group of rats that come by, So I imagine it kind of like a handshake. Like, you find a bird, you see a bird, right? And you're able to get close enough to it that it recognizes you as an individual, not just as part of the background noise, And that might mean you trap it. That might mean it sees you. But then you bring it under your will in some way, right? So you have a bird feeder or have a bird bath. And so it begins to recognize you as an individual. And then I call it a handshake, but I'm putting my hand out kind of like in a hood. It's kind of, you just like extend your will over it, and then there's a contract that's made. And because its will is very small, there's no contest of will. It has a will, but it's very small, And so you can, what's up?
I had a couple thoughts, but please go.
Yeah, no, please go.
So one, as a lawyer, you should always have a written contract. Just going to throw that out there. I think your magic system has kind of two interesting things for me. One is it would seem to me that the way that class would develop and the way that societal structures would develop would not be based on physical strength or even wealth, but the level of will that you have over the world, and those who have the strongest will would be considered the highest ranked status. And so I'd be curious to know, is it a hereditary thing, or is each individual person born with the ability to develop more or less will, or is it kind of set? Is it like IQ, to the extent that's even a credible mental measuring system? Or is it something, if you train hard enough, you can increase your will? Which to me, you said you wouldn't expect there to be slavery because it seems like that's just morally wrong. That's interesting to me because I would have expected the opposite, that if you have the ability to dominate the natural world or other organisms through willpower alone, that would be more conducive to slaving humans as well. But I think you could explain. I'd be curious to see how that gets developed as to why that's not the case. And then the second thought I had was a lot of how you're describing it seems to me to bring in this idea of like spirits in the Asian cultural world, in the sense like innate things that we would consider not to be living or to be, a rock or a stream, has a spirit in some sense that can be dominated by another person and be interacted with by another person, which I've always found to be an interesting concept.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think with the slavery thing, as you were talking, you're right. There would be, but that would definitely in this world be a sense of contention, because some people would feel very strongly that whoever has the strongest will kind of gets to decide.
So I think with mine, I have a slight answer to that.
Okay. What did you have?
I had Wise Old Man.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay, so the wise old man, to, let's say, kind of answer the question of the slavery thing, being that it's like this contractual, a lot of to maybe, let's say it was to curb this, things are contractual, right? So your service to someone is a contract, right? And then there's repercussions to that if that's broken,
Right.
right? From a legal standpoint. And so a lot of things are done, contractually, which then protect, like, so if you go to work for someone, it's a contract, right? And you're submitting your will to do the certain amount of work up to the certain point, and if that's breached, then you end up, right? So if, like, you're submitting your will under someone more powerful, if they break that breach of contract, they've actually put themselves under you. So then it,
Oh,
like, putting
yeah.
it that way, right? So if you had servitude, right, you would have to be very careful to abide by the terms of that service. Otherwise, under that magic system, you end up at a huge loss, right? Or subservient to the other party, in whichever way it is. If that might answer this. So in a lot of I would say if this works, not any of the kingdoms, let's say, have a standing army. Everything is done, if then by what you've done, like a contractual, like mercenary service, right? So
Okay.
that the terms of whatever it is under, what they've been contracted to serve for, right? So if, let's say, you've come under the contract to retaliate against some aggression, but then you're told to go, burn this village over here, right? You couldn't do that, right? If that makes sense.
I think so, because you're saying everything is based on a contract, and so things were held and really tightly controlled because if your contract says I'm supposed to defend this wall, you essentially can't be told to go and burn that village because that would immediately break your contract.
Yeah. So anyways, if that puts some other context between some of that, and so what our wise old man is he has kind of worked with a lot of these like independent mercenary people. He's very well known, very respected, for his martial prowess, right? Kind of a hero, if you would. Has a lot of connections to a lot of these different groups, a lot of the different, governments or corporations that, get involved on the political scale of things. He's fought or been under contract, and gained renown under, just about, everybody. But now he's retired and he lives in his kind of hermitage up in the mountains. But people still send students to try to find him or seek him out,
Right.
to receive the training from him. But that's our wise old man.
Did you have a name for him?
Lawrence.
Cool.
Lawrence of
Arabia?
Arabia.
Oh, jinx.
I kind of like how this seems to be, like Robbie was saying, it seems to be kind of turning into, he was saying, like, kind of the Asian, it kind of seems to be turning into a little bit of like a ninja, old world, kung fu guru up on the mountain.
The one other thing that I was going to say is I know the secret to subduing rock is you have to
Okay.
master paper. So you have to fold like all the origamis and show them to rock, because as everyone knows, rock or paper beats rock.
Wow.
And so you have to intimidate rock by showing them that you're a master of paper. I don't know. That was
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that could work. I thought,
like, it seems silly, but maybe that's why a lot of people don't.
I was really, really, really excited for like a solid 2 seconds. I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna tell me what it is," and then you said that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Reed or Robbie, do either of you guys have any world building stuff? We need a little bit more world building, I think, for my brain to kind of turn this into a story. Do you guys have any interesting ideas?
Well, I would like to introduce my hero just because he falls into it so nicely. And then maybe I'll be inspired as I finish that up. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So our hero's name is Xavier with an X, Xavier. Xavier lives in the present. He is perpetually now in the moment. He's hyper aware of his situation and surroundings at all times. And it's always been this way. Discipline that, athletes or, ninja fighters or commandos or spies, they must train themselves to acquire these kinds of disciplines. These come as naturally to Xavier as breathing. He's kind of, the way he looks, he's rugged, he's graceful, agile in his movements. He has regular features and laughing eyes. He gives the impression of giving people he interacts with his full intention, because he does. He has this remarkable ability, all the while not missing one detail of what's going on around him. While appearing to be spontaneous, Xavier lives a very planned, intentional life, kind of experiencing the present without losing focus on his objectives in the greater picture. So he's kind of a master of multitasking. But that capacity to be right here, right now, and see people and react to what's going on with them tends to build there's a confidence that he exudes. As a result, he builds trust very easily. And so he's kind of a natural hero in this world that we're building. And I see him as having very privileged from a wealthy background. So he's had some freedom to roam, so to speak. And so one of the things that he's been really interested in is weather. Can I make a contract with the wind? Can I grasp a little piece of the wind right here, right now, the air around me? And because of his hyper awareness and situational awareness, he has that kind of built in, seeing the ramifications of the butterfly fluttering its wings and, the ripples and the effects and the things that go on, the flower on the mountaintop and the wind in his hair kind of awareness. And I see him as not having been military, not coming up from a military tradition, but certainly has all features necessary for command, that command presence. And it's the kind of thing that is not manipulative. It seems, because he's absolutely genuine. He's right here, right now, and he is who he is. And, people just find themselves saying to themselves, I can deal with this, but he's a strong man. So that's Xavier.
I like it.
Is he considered eccentric for being interested in the weather, or do we think that'd be kind of a normal thing, or kind of a elite tier? How would we view that? How would that be seen in the world?
Well, it'd be sought after by farmers, obviously. It's good to have rain when you need it.
Yeah, my thought is that there, as it is with most systems, in my opinion, there's like when you have a magic system that's so far-reaching that everyone can use, everyone can do the impossible, everyone can do the crazy thing of commanding bugs, and so therefore that's mundane. And my view is that where we are now, people know that there are people who can who in legend have been able to make contracts with the wind or with fire or with the sea, but no one really does that anymore. It's kind of like the spiritual gifts. Those times are past. That was before.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I saw it, is that he would definitely be seen as like an eccentric, someone who has that level of sort of present-mindedness. And I had an idea about who our villain would be as Reed was talking about this, but Robbie, I want to hear about your hero sidekick.
Yes. So I came in with an idea. I'm going to add a couple stuff to it just based on the conversation we've had so far.
Absolutely.
So my hero sidekick is a woman who came from like a lower class, maybe lower middle class family. She's like the third daughter of basically a working man. And she had a chance to basically escape that by her marriage to a very high status man that, her family hasn't exactly understood how she managed to make that work, but somehow they fell in love. Very well established family. But very shortly into their marriage, he passes away from an illness. And his family casts her out because they're so ashamed at the fact that their son, brother, nephew, etc. would have married this low-class status woman.
Right.
And so she is basically trying to hard scrabble to find her way back. And in this, somehow she is separated from her family. She can't easily go back to them either geographically or culturally or societally. And so she's fallen in with the hero as a way to basically, I have to find a way to survive in this world where I thought I had reached the fairy tale ending, and I'm even further down than I would have been if I had just stayed at the level society expected me to stay at. The other thought I had as we were talking about this is
Yeah.
she cannot control will. No one knows, like no one else knows that. She's been able to fake that she can through various, street smarts or
Right.
making it seem like it, but somehow, for some reason, she does not have this ability that everyone else in the world has. Or does she? All she knows is she's never been able to successfully do it.
Gotcha. So there's some possible hidden greater talent there.
Yeah,
Because one of the things you
Go
said
ahead.
was that they weren't really sure how she was able to secure this kind of this higher marriage. That's not like to say she secretly magicked him, right? That's not what you were saying?
Well, I think that depends on how you want the story to develop. Maybe she did. Maybe
believe
that's an
in
accidental
magic.
thing in a young, lower middle class girl's heart. Maybe she did secretly magic him. She had no idea that she could do that. Or maybe this was a true love story. Maybe she's the beginning of humanity losing this ability. Maybe she has such an unbelievably strong potential that it's going to take something very large to ever trigger it. I think there's just a lot of interesting things that can be played around there while adding in the fact that she's in such a desperate situation. But I think it can play really interestingly with the hero who's trying to, understand weather, which is eccentric and something that only people of legend could do, indicating he probably should have some high will ability, magic ability, paired
Right.
with a woman who has none, potentially.
Right. I can almost imagine that she is traveling with him kind of in this like he's so high in this ability that if I can like travel with him, maybe some of that will rub off on me, and
Yeah,
I
I
can,
think
it'll finally manifest.
Right, and if it could finally manifest, I can work my way out of this situation I found myself in. And maybe the reason they became sidekicks is she met him while married to her husband. They ran in similar circles because they would have been high status because they both have high magic ability.
Right, right. And there's like rumors, it's like, did she kill him? So maybe she had to kind of flee a little bit because, here a low status person comes in, marries this guy, and then he dies, and then she just disappears. She gets kicked out, and it's like, yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe that could be a way for the family to, I don't know how shameful it is in this society to not take care of widows, even if they weren't, ones that you approved of originally, but that could be a way for the family to justify, like, stripping her of the inheritance she should have gotten as his widow, making
Right.
sure she doesn't get to claim to the family, is spreading maybe, at least the hint, the unspoken accusation that it wasn't an illness, that she magicked him into loving her and then killed him to steal all of his wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. So she is, put out destitute, like you said, lower than she would have been if she had never even done this in the first place. I like that. That's a really good problem. That's a really good problem character. I like problem characters. Speaking of problem characters, I know who the villain is. So there is a method that you can do with this kind of will casting, this kind of will contract building thing that you can do where if you are able to, and it seems really simple that you would do this, but it's actually really quite difficult to do. If you're able to meditate and recognize yourself, right? If you are able to look into yourself and take stock and inventory of yourself and make a contract with yourself, you can basically directly affect what you are and what you are capable of doing. You can exert this sort of control onto yourself as long as you follow the contract, right? This is one of the kind of old esoteric, now considered kind of weird and taboo things that is taught, but it's not taught in its practical application. It's taught in things like control yourself. That's what's taught, where the answer isn't like wrestle control of your emotions, right? That's what's taught now. But the reality is control yourself. So turn off your emotion when it needs to be turned off. If you're angry and you don't want to be angry anymore, exercise the contract you've made with yourself and turn off that part of your brain and control yourself. So it's a very risky form of magic and not something that's good, but something I think maybe our hero's sidekick has some experience with. But our villain is an old family. He was the head of a family, and he was very old, and he had kind of manipulated and worked his way into kind of being in a place of prominence in the city, and he had kind of through his position of power, he had found old books and studied old methods. He had done forbidden forms of contract making, right? Like all of his quote unquote servants, like couldn't talk to anyone else about him. They couldn't talk about him at all. They couldn't tell any secrets about him. So he had like done a lot of terrible manipulation, but he died. He had a massive heart attack and then a stroke, and then I'm using air quotes right now, died. But because of the size of his titanic will and the fact that he had contracts with himself, with his body, he succeeded in doing probably the most destructive form of will casting magic that exists, which is he stopped his soul from leaving his body because of his will. So as he was dying and his soul was separating, and the soul is the reservoir of will, was separating, because he was in control of himself, I'm making air quotes again, he was able to look back and re-knit his body to his soul and come back.
Ooh.
And it is not a perfect comeback, just so we're clear. His body is constantly rejecting his soul because his body says, I'm dead. But his soul and the reservoir of his will says, I am alive. I will remain alive. So he has now been alive for, maybe 100 years or so, sort of controlling this family from the shadows because, everyone saw him cough up blood and die on the table. Everyone saw, everyone knows he died, but he is now he's seeking an answer to his problem, which is not to let go and, have his soul pass the divine gate and go into whatever is after life. He wants to find a vessel to inhabit. He wants to find a place that he can basically send his soul to live longer. What's your idea? Let's hear it.
He tried to possess Hero Sidekick's husband and kill him.
That's it. Yeah. So he tried. So that's the family. That's the family that she married into, and he chose that person as a vessel. And sweet young bride. That'd be awesome. He's thinking, and so he tries to basically send his soul over in some ritual, and it doesn't work. Or maybe it does work, but it doesn't work like he doesn't.
Yeah, is it like Palpatine clone where the body decays so fast it's not even viable? The other thing I wanted to flag when you were talking about having enough will to control yourself, it seems very similar to like Galbatorix or Galbatorix in the inheritance cycle. Like if you can find the magic word for magic, you control magic. It seems like very similar to kind of what you're setting up here.
Yeah, I was thinking that. There's that. And then I just finished the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, which has a lot of like will-based things around it, where the power of your will is what sort of says how effective your magic actually is, I've not. What series is that you just said?
Inheritance cycle, the like Aragon and
oh really
Eldis and Brizinger and
gotcha.
Inheritance. Yeah, I think it's called the Inheritance cycle. Maybe it's something else.
It is called that. Yeah, I think I read the first 2 books. But yeah, so I was thinking it kind of like he finds out that he's able to occupy her husband's body, but it's as inefficiently as he was occupying his own, right? It's not like being fully alive again. It's like the body decays. The body is he doesn't have any anti-rejection medication to take to make it so his body isn't constantly rejecting this soul, which is totally foreign, And so that's the reason why I like that, tying that in together. But there has to be some legend of something that you could do. Maybe that's a stone, it's something made of stone. He wants some artificial body created or made that could be a reservoir for his soul. And that's, he's kind of, he's a slimy guy. He's like a mob boss and an old family, patriarch and a slimy, manipulative, mean guy.
I have the undead part, you have this dead body shambling around and, kind of carrying on. And then he tries to inhabit this newly dead guy. Or did he participate in the death?
Oh, he participated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was his attempt to inhabit him, which is what caused him to die.
Yeah.
I imagine he can't speak well, he's not rotting right away, but he's pale. His eyes are dim. But he has this kind of titanic will that you come into the room, and as soon as he kind of recognizes who you are, you feel yourself kind of grabbed and pulled towards him as the power, because I think to answer your question earlier, Robbie, is that it's a muscle. So some people are born genetically predisposed to be able to grow muscle faster, and some people are genetically born predispositioned to grow muscle, and some people are born with low muscle. So he was born genetically predispositioned to have great will, but also to grow great will. And he's just been using it every day, basically 24 hours a day, to hold his soul in. And so he recognizes you, and you just feel yourself pulled over to him as you find you still have your own will, but you find yourself I have to follow him. I have to do what he says. I need to, his thoughts are my thoughts. His ways are my ways. And this is how he's been able to stay in power. And this is how he is the villain, because he regards his own will over others. He considers it more powerful than others. And it is, I would say it's probably the most powerful will that occurs in this story, as a singular thing. Other people can have great moments of will that are greater, but he's got the biggest will muscles, as it were. All right, so we've made it into the story. We have the setting, we have the heroes, we have the villain. What is the great conflict? What is the conflagration?
Well, I'm picking up, one of the things I'm thinking of is on a micro level, is there's for some reason, of course, Xavier has dealings with this family and as a result, has made contact with his new sidekick. But because of his ability to connect so easily in the moment with individuals, even people he's hardly acquainted with, there's that immediate empathy that comes up. And he is very sensitive to anybody whose will has been stepped on. And he quickly provides, kind of respite from that. Here is a safe haven where if I connect here, my will isn't under assault, and I see that there's an immediate, conflict that happens and I don't know why. We should probably come up with a story. Let's see, what would be the connection between these two people?
Between the hero and the hero's sidekick?
Could it be that the villain tried to take the hero first, but because of the hero's kind of focus on the moment, it failed, but he realized that this was out here, so he's been trying to figure out how to beat him. He sees that the hero's sidekick, husband died, he knows what happened, so he basically scoops her up, and they're on a quest to, if they can figure out how to control the weather, that's the first step to getting to the wise man who knows the secret potentially, to knowing yourself, which then will allow them to finally beat the villain.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that I had this kind of interesting idea. I was thinking about the hero's sidekick, and I was thinking about, honestly, what's really interesting is I was thinking about Mary, the mother of Christ, and I was thinking about the fact that she, when presented with this crazy proposition, which was bear Christ, she said, "Not my will, but yours." So I think her, and you can tell me, Robbie, if you don't like this idea on your element, but I think hers is it's a hook. She submits to you, right? She submits to your will, and then all of your will is put under her power. So she does not win by dominating. She wins by submitting. So she submits, and kind of like Aikido, all of your will is then put under her. And this is why the villain wants to kill her, because all she would have to do is submit to him, which is literally he would have to recognize her, and then she would have to submit, and then he would be gone. But she doesn't understand this, because the culture and the teaching is dominate, dominate, dominate. You know, people aren't taught to submit, because everyone is taught, oh, you see a bug, it sees you, dominate it. Oh, you see a plant, it sees you, dominate it. It recognizes you, dominate it. It's all about domination. It's always a fight for domination, and submission is seen as such a shameful defeat, because of the culture of the whole will and everything. It's all seen as, well, to submit is to say that like you weren't powerful enough. To submit is to say that you weren't enough, you know? And so that's what makes her unique, is that she has this kind of opposite hook, that if she submits to you and you attempt to dominate, then she basically drains all of your will, and then she controls it at that point.
Wow.
What do you guys think of that as the reason why the villain would hate her?
This is really interesting. You could go a lot of different ways with this. I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with anything.
No, it's okay. I think that the hero is sort of on this journey to control the weather, or to like controlling the weather isn't like his task. It's like the thing. It's like who he is. It's like Naruto eating ramen. You know, you wouldn't say it's Naruto's job to eat ramen, but he eats ramen every chance he gets. You know, and he's definitely I think he's on this journey to the. I think they're trying to escape. Because I think that if they can get out of the valley that they're in with the village and or the city, they can get out of the valley and up into the mountains where the wise old man is, then they can like be safe from this guy. I think that's like a kind of a fair story. What do you guys think?
I think I like all of it except for just trying to escape him, because I feel like with the hero's sidekick, if she becomes aware that this, malevolent ancestor basically is the one who killed her husband, I don't think that just running away would be what she would respond to.
That's true.
I think it'd be more of, I gotta avenge my husband, but then that sounds like it's making her much more the hero than the hero's sidekick. So I think there has to be some way to make it the hero story.
Well, which would be fine, because because of the nature of the hero, he'll see these dynamics, and part of his heroic quest is to fly in the face of the struggle for dominance. You know, he's got this empathetic gifting, and he contracts with people and goes along with their agenda where it's working, but is able to interject his own agenda, and he's been able to morph this process into a collaborative. I mean, he is a master of synergy, because he has danced with this dominance mantra, so to speak, this dominance culture, and has found a better way. And I see that he could be, as the hero, he could be the point man, unraveling some of the control over some of the servants and the villain's inner circle, so to speak. And they're just like so relieved when they, to get the relief from that dominance. It's like instant loyalties are built, and it becomes an invasion, and then it's sort of like he gets distracted about where the real threat is, and then the sidekick, he finds himself, his nephew's former wife is, before he knows it, she's submitted to him, and his will is putty in her hands without him even. I mean, I see that as kind of like a sneak attack.
One of the things I was thinking about is that so I had this kind of picture, as Reed was talking, I had this kind of picture that they travel up the mountain to, maybe it's something like this. The hero's sidekick is being kicked out of the house after her husband dies. She's like destitute. She has nothing. She's called in front of the patriarch of the family, right? Who is now in shadow because it's her husband's old body. And he basically, he knows it's not working, right? And he knows that she comes from over the mountain, or there's some reason that he's like, if you do this thing for me, I will grant you your whatever, your lands, your title, your everything back. You're untouched by my will is the reality, is that she's unstained by his will at all, where the entire rest of the family isn't. Mm-hmm. And so she meets up with the hero, and they go on a journey up the mountain to basically go up to where the wise old man is and figure out the truth of something. It's a question about living forever. It's something about making a contract with the rocks. It's basically what it is in ancient times, people found a way and they refined a certain type of stone, and then they made a statue of their likeness, and they were able to cast their soul into it and be bound to it and quote unquote live forever, right? And this is where like ancestor worship came from, because that will is still there. And so where the villain thinks that it means like I'll be able to like be forever myself, where in reality it's I'll be trapped forever. So it's kind of like a self-defeating thing. So they journey up through the mountains. The hero teaches her how to everything that he stands for. She learns about her own abilities because she like has to deal with like tons of like self-hate and like lots of issues of self-worth based on the fact that she's never had power. She finally had this love, and then it's like gone, and like what are we supposed to do, and all these things. And she learns to be independent and self-reliant, gets up to the top of the tower, finds out about the immortality, finds out about everything. They not the tower, the mountain, come back down, and there's kind of like a pseudo, it's not a battle, it's not a fight, there's no fist fighting, there's no kung fu moves that happen, but it's a meeting, and she is able to basically submit and take, she takes his will and then puts it into the statue, which he has prepared because he thinks it's going to make him live forever. And then it's like defeated, right? And because it goes there, all the will from all the servants and everything is all immediately lifted, and then they, the hero makes some comment about how, there's like 6 more warlords trying the same thing. Should we go and like do that? Should we go and give them the same treatment? Sure. And then that's kind of the end. What do you guys think of that as like a super kind of compressed and quick way of saying that the story is done?
I like it. I think it's got a lot of potential. You can kind of get you could go down like a buddy cop adventure. You could have it be a more serious one. You could have it be its own version of romantasy, depending on how old the hero is. I mean, there's just so many different ways you could, and how old the hero's psychic is. There's so many different ways that you could, different genres you could put this in. So no, I think it's good.
Yeah. Anything we didn't touch on, Seth? You wanna?
No.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Wait It Gets Better. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions about this latest episode, this is going to be a one-off, so there's no part 2 for this one. But if you have any questions about this, questions for any of us, questions for Robbie, feel free to email us at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. Or Robbie, do you have what's your social media?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page for my author account called Author Robbie Dube, ROBBYDUBE. You can find me on there, and feel free to send me messages, interact with me. I love talking to anyone who likes books, and especially if you like mine.
Absolutely. And join us next week as we talk to Robbie about his book, about the writing process, about the editing process, about the publishing process. If you want to message us on Twitter, you can message us at @GetsBettercast. And if you didn't like this episode, if you thought it was bad, if you thought it was quick and rushed, if you thought we didn't have good ideas, I would say just wait. It gets better.